All right, well, I got him, the premier bioethicist in the world, and a guy who has been pretty stern in his recent writing and has been out front, as he always is, and really shifting, I think, the moral terrain on mandating vaccines. And I'm really happy to have him here talking about his pieces in USA Today and Barron's. You can read it. The great Dr. Arthur Caplan, who is prolific on Twitter, and I love reading your Twitter feed all the time. Thank you for joining me. You've decided what is this major change or announcement? You just no more carrots. Now it's time for sticks.
No more carrots. Time for sticks, and no more indulging my body, my choice. I'm free to do what I want. I'm tired of worrying about the rights of the unvaccinated. I mean, really, they've been dominating the discussion for months and months. A lot of states have governors saying, well, you can't restrict where they go, and you can't make them mask, and you can't make them vaccinate. It's like, to heck with that. Of course you can do those things. The main number one moral goal is don't kill people. So kids can't vaccinate, old people can't vaccinate, immunosuppressed people aren't vaccinated, cancer patients, transplant patients, don't kill them. How about that for the lead moral rule? You adopt that, then maybe we could say that means you can restrict where somebody goes. Like, don't go to the hospital and visit unless you're vaccinated. Some hospitals are starting to insist upon that. How about all the nursing home staff everywhere should be vaccinated, or don't work there. People keep saying to me, well, they're going to leave if you make them vaccinate. Oh, okay. Well, then I'll keep them so they can kill my grandmother. I mean, what are we talking about here? It's like,
it's not necessarily the toughest choice for employers as a result of your articles and a few others and calling for these mandates. We've seen, as you mentioned, a number of employers, airlines, the cruise ships want a mandate apparently, but a lot of them leave from Florida, and the governor there, who has been doing everything he can to spread the vaccine short of pouring it on his own people. What do you make of the governors and the legislators who are making it harder? I don't know if you've been following what they're doing with Texas schools. It's outrageous, Art.
Morons, killers, ridiculous. I mean, Texas has this new policy you were just starting to talk about. You can't make anybody mask. You can't let anybody stay home. You can't tell people if you're COVID positive. If you're COVID positive, go to school anyway. Well, why don't we just hire Dr. Kevorkian to be the public health expert for the state of Texas? I mean, it's like, it's just ridiculous. Well, I would hold those people accountable. I try to sue them if my kid got sick for having policies that don't protect anybody.
Just break it down like a dummy to me here. If government is there to do what's in the public's interest and they have a public health department, that public health department puts out advisories and regulations, and we keep people safe by making them wear goggles and helmets and any number of things. So explain to me how generally government works for the public interest by utilizing a public health department filled with experts to help them do what's best to protect the people.
So their mission as public health people is to worry about behavior and what it does to a group, to a community, to a population, or to a vulnerable population like school kids. Their job isn't to worry about Joe Schmendrick and his, slogan that I can do whatever the hell I want.
Right.
First of all, he's wrong. And second of all, that's not public health's mission anyways, to worry about the numbers, not about the individuals. The governor is supposed to be the governor representing all the people of Texas, not doing a political calculation that says, a lot of my folks don't like vaccines. I guess I'll cater to them and, let the chips fall. You are duty bound, in my opinion, to protect the citizens' health if you're the elected officials, certainly are if you're the public health officials. And this whole idea, let's go back to Florida and another nutball, DeSantis, the governor there, saying you can't make your workplace safe to the cruise industry. It's been 100 years of legislation holding employers to account to make the workplace safer, like wear a respirator, you got to wear a hard hat, wear special clothing. In some industries, you got to be vaccinated to work there. You can't work on an oil derrick and get sick, so they make you take all your vaccines before you go out there. The governor's basically saying, in Florida, I don't care about all that employee safety malarkey. Cruise ships, you can't make it safe to operate. And they're suing him, and I am going to predict here, they'll win. Of course they can make the workplace safe. The governor, without getting too,
get as animated as you want.
No, I was just going to say he's got his head up his ass. But I don't know if that's animation. It's just that may protect him against COVID, but the rest of us, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's really crazy what's happening in Florida. I just talked to the president of the Florida Education Association, the biggest teachers union in the state there, and it's absolutely insane what they're doing. And you mentioned Texas and what they're doing with the schools. But just to belabor this point one more time, an example of where the government protects the people. You're hearing some legislators literally say, I mean, Fox News' Brian Kilmeade, who is stone cold stupid, but I saw another lieutenant governor of, I think, North Carolina saying, government, I don't need government to protect me. And I started thinking, well, how do you feel about red lights, traffic lights? Like, are you mad when you see a traffic light at an intersection? That are you mad when you see a guardrail on the side of a cliff? Like, government is definitely there to protect us and protect the public interest. Where are some examples here? Why is
by the way, I'm assuming not much interest in fire departments. Don't like the cops.
I'm not worried about fire myself, but I think other people should be.
Well, if I lived in California, my entire town burned down. I'm not taking interest in getting protected. And look, what about hurricanes that come to North Carolina? Does the governor just say, hey, you're on your own, call me if you survive? I mean, that's not the function of government, particularly even if you're a conservative, you know that there are certain infrastructure issues. Keep the bridges safe, make sure the roads can be used, make sure the emergency services can respond. There's no libertarian who gets to the point where they say, well, just dig a hole, build yourself a safe foxhole, stock it up with food and live there, and that's it. I mean, if you are in that camp, you're going to lead a pretty miserable, crummy life because you're just going to be by yourself in some Ian Randian, utopia, survival. Look, I want to say something else. Some people ask me, well, why do I have to get vaccinated? I hear these vaccines aren't as good against the new variant. Well, that's partly true. They're not as good. They're somewhat better than nothing, but they're not as good. But here's the other issue. You know what the vaccines do, Pete? They make you not die. They also make you not go to the hospital. They seem to be working just great in doing those things. So I look at Arkansas, Louisiana, Texas. The hospitals are overflowing again. Yeah. ICU's jammed up. People can't get in to get regular care or trauma care because everybody's stuck with these COVID patients again, just like we saw last year in the New York area, for example. Should you be burdening the hospital staff or be a jerk? That's the ethics question.
I saw one hospital like lead physician or CEO or whatever making this plea. I think it was in Arkansas or one of the states where they have high infection rates, where it's like, Your son doesn't want to get vaccinated. He ends up in one of my trauma centers, my ICU beds. Your other son, has an accident on his motorcycle, and now he can't get in because there's no beds. Explain the ethics around that. I mean, can you kick someone out of a bed if they didn't get a vaccine because this poor guy got in a farming accident?
Docs won't do it because the ethics still is, I don't make judgments about my patients. But if those people who don't want to vaccinate had any guts to stand by their convictions, they would volunteer to go to the end of the line. Or maybe they wouldn't even show up at the hospital because they wouldn't want to take away resources from those who acted responsibly. They don't do that. They trot right into the ICU and say, take care of me. A few of them mumble, can I get the vaccine now? A little late. So again, I want to come back to that theme. I am sick and tired of the moral ground being held by vaccine objectors. I don't want a mask. I'm going to do what I want to do. Those philosophies are good if you're in a college dorm room and a freshman and you're trying to figure out what's this ethics all about. They're not the right position for state policy, local policy, or national policy, or for that matter, international policy. I'll say it again. First principle, don't kill people. You do that when you don't vaccinate, and you do that when you crowd up the ICUs. Next principle, pay attention to the interests of the community. And if you don't vaccinate, you don't go to work. You don't get to go to sports. You don't get to go to a restaurant. Let's get the ethics back where it belongs and stop ceding it to the nuts.
Is there any ethical obligation from government or healthcare worker? Well, obviously from healthcare workers' point of view to, the unvaccinated. What about the rights of the unvaccinated, Art?
Well, they do have rights. They have a right to be quarantined. They have a right to be isolated. They have a right to be told you can't come in here because you're not vaccinated. They have a right not to travel. By the way, I'm getting all kinds of ads. I don't know about you, Pete. My email box is full of things from airlines saying, come on down to Florida. Great deals. Come on down in the middle of a plague. Are you vaccinating the airline crew? Are you vaccinating my hotel people? Are you vaccinating the restaurant? So I have a right to travel, but I would expect the unvaccinated to do their duty. Here's a word we don't hear much, and try to protect each other and me.
Yeah, well, I who knows if it's hard to know when someone's unvaccinated, and it's hard to know whether or not what percentage of unvaccinated people are doing.
By the way, hard to know who's vaccinated. Let's take a little whack at our Biden administration here. Where is a vaccine passport? Where is a card that says I'm vaccinated? I'm listening to people say, well, I have the CDC piece of paper. First of all, you can counterfeit that in about a minute. Second of all, it doesn't even fit in your wallet, right? You can't put that in your wallet. It's hard to use. It was never intended to be your vaccine card. It was intended to make you go get a second shot. That's what it was intended to do. So put out a plastic card, put a chip on the damn thing, make it hard to counterfeit, put it on your iPhone if you can afford it, put it on your iPad. Why aren't they moving in a vaccine passport? What's all this hemming and hawing saying, oh, we don't want to get into that? Of course you want to get into that.
Because the politics of it is they Joe Biden can't even say we're going to have people come knock on your door and ask you if you're vaccinated, if you'd like to get vaccinated, and that of course gets turned into the Gestapo. I mean, listen, the real concern from the political people inside the White House is, by
the way, I wish he'd apply that policy to Jehovah's Witnesses who keep appearing at my door, unwanted, unsolicited.
I'll never forget when I found out what they were. The kid down the street's like, I don't celebrate birthdays or holidays. It's like,
no flag salute.
The show me your papers, Art. You're hearing that everywhere. All these right-wing firebrands, your Ted Cruz's, your Hannity's, the show me your papers thing. How do you feel about that?
Hey, here's a couple of places I've shown papers. I want to go in a bar and I'm 16. They card me. It took me years to develop resources so I could get phony IDs to get into those places. They carded you.
I thought the drinking age when you were young was 15.
No, not in Massachusetts, not in the world of Packies. We were 18, I believe. Other places you get carded. How about this? I want to take a trip on an airplane. Really? Show me your ID. Show me 2 IDs. Show it to me again when the TSA guy asked me for it. What is this? The rise of fascism in the airline industry? I mean, we show ID constantly all the time. I have to show it at the bank. Even Facebook, I believe, has records on something like 3 billion people worldwide. So what are they talking about? I mean, I know what they're talking about. They're talking about being political and trying to appeal again to a certain ethos that says the government and the state have no role. Government and the state have a big role in a plague. I mean, you're on one side or the other here. You either line up with a virus and say, go virus where you want, and take your stupid allies who won't vaccinate with you or won't mask with you and use them, or you're for the people and trying to protect them. And right now we keep hearing from public officials in the South, which, by the way, overrun with COVID. If you wanted a demonstration of how well their ideas work, where's COVID? It's where Ted Cruz is. I mean, it's where the viewership of Tucker Carlson is. It's all over the South.
Yep. Yeah. If you wanted a concrete example of where these conservative policies lead us to, because the argument that they continue to make is one of freedom. You mentioned it, my body, my choice, which is something that was certainly lifted from the women's reproductive rights movement, of course, but that's not That's not the same. And by the way, I know somebody might be thinking when you're talking about the places you have to show an ID, well, that's why you have to show an ID for voting. No, all the places that you have to show an ID for are for good reasons, for security purposes. We don't have a problem with voting and people voting fraudulently, so we don't need that. But getting back.
Here's a phrase just to back that up. License and registration, please. The cops are asking you for ID all the time when they pull you over. Should I say, no, it's a fascist state, and I pulled my license plates off my car because I don't believe in the legitimacy of any I mean, come on.
Right. No, but that's the rhetoric that they're using now.
Oh, by the way, rhetoric we should be ready to turn back on when this quiets down and the abortion debate rolls back up. Yes, I remember my body, my choice. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's different. It's not your body. It's I don't know what the arguments they're making. What about, you mentioned Jehovah's Witnesses earlier, and then I made fun of them. And I want to know, what about religious exemptions? I mean, who are these religions? Because now anybody can just say, I have a religious exemption. And it's like, well, what religion do you follow? It's like, it's the Dominikites is what we are. And we do what we want with our bodies.
So no organized religion of any size is opposed to vaccines. None. I've done the search. Catholics, Hindus, Buddhists, Jews, Protestant groups, they all love vaccination and they want you to do it. The Catholic Church keeps saying you ought to get vaccinated to help the community, just to give an example. As far as I can tell, even Christian scientists are not opposed to vaccination. They make the decision a matter of conscience. So this whole religious exemption thing is bogus. It's just stupid. A couple of states, even during COVID, pulled it from childhood vaccination requirements. California, New York, Maine, and Connecticut. And I got involved in that fight. And some people said, well, you can't get rid of religious exemptions. You know, it's the freedom to practice your religion. You keep pointing out, if you're going to have a religion, it can't be a religion of one based upon, as you said, the Dominic's view that they don't like vaccines. They pray at the altar of fresh air or something. So it's I don't know how it even got going. I don't know the history, but I don't buy any of that religious exemption.
And where do you see the school conversation going? That's continued to be made. You know, this is interesting too. Back in Florida, back to my friend I was talking about down there, the local communities, the local board of education should have a lot of freedom, and they usually do on a wide range of issues regarding school. And if they want to mandate or they want to mask or whatever they want to do remote, that's usually something that's going to be made up by the community. In Florida, he's saying no. He's not allowing the local community's board of education. He's overruling them. So are they in Texas, as you mentioned. But, you know, I don't know if we can put those states aside, but where do you see us going to fall? And I always think school starts September 6th, around Labor Day, whatever, first week of September. But a lot of schools across the country start much earlier in mid-August. So where are we at?
Well, look, if you're going back to school as a teacher, janitor, get vaccinated now. Whether it's mid-August startup or after Labor Day, you need a couple of weeks to get that immunity built up. So I think the right thing to do there is get ready if you're an adult. Kids, when you can get vaccinated, I guess it's down to 12, they should be vaccinated too. Their parents should be bringing them in. Getting ready for school includes now get a backpack, get your pencils, and get vaccinated down to age 12. Interestingly enough, sometime in September, I think you're going to see Pfizer licensed, full approval, and maybe extended down to age 5. Obviously, what I think is start vaccinating there too. You know, I saw a number, less than half of 12 to 17-year-olds vaccinated right now. So we got a ways to go there. Other things. Yeah. I think it may be important to mask. And I get it. I don't like wearing masks. And I don't think a lot of school kids like wearing masks. And we may have some situations, outdoor recess, playing sports outside, certain things where you don't have to mask. But if I'm in a crummy school with poor ventilation, 40 kids in a class, it might be smart to mask. And I hope that the governor, wherever the governors are, do not try to override that kind of decision. It's just amazing to me to listen to all these guys who once invoked states' rights now say, nope, no community rights. Nope, sorry, can't have that relationship to the governor.
Yeah, I don't think this is right. This can't be right? That I read that even if you want to wear a mask, you're not allowed to wear a mask. They didn't do that, did they? I don't
I think something pretty close to that was in the Texas.
If a kid wants to wear a mask in school, if a parent wants a kid to wear a mask for everybody's peace of mind or for whatever, any reason at all at this point, I think that, yeah, you should be allowed to. I can't even imagine what that could be in a completely normal time before pandemic.
You could wear a mask to school. You're worried about the flu. Who knows? I mean,
yeah.
People could wear masks in class. They didn't, maybe they didn't like it if you wore a burqa. That became controversial, but wearing a mask?
I used to wear a fencing helmet, but that was just because I was trying to draw attention to myself. And it worked. The ladies
love that. Did they like that?
Yeah, because they couldn't see my face through that screen. So last question, insurance. Can health insurance companies charge higher premiums for the unvaccinated the way they do, I guess, smokers? And I can't think of any other example that they really can cite.
Well, health, it's been smokers, and the answer is yes. Private insurance, there's some ACA restrictions on what you can do in Medicare and Medicaid kind of things. But remember, life insurance, they go over and say, hey, Pete, you're looking a little blubbery. I think your blood pressure's crummy. You can get life insurance, just going to pay 4 times as much. Same with disability insurance. Right. We have all the precedents out there that you have to pay more if you look like you might be a riskier situation. So I'm going to say yes, and I'll end with this. If I can prove that you infected my kid and my kid went to the hospital, I should be suing you for costs. Hospital costs, if I had any, whatever affiliated costs, it's the same as running a red light deliberately, not shoveling the walk when people fall down. There are many situations where people don't maintain their pool or their well and some kid falls into it. You get sued. Why aren't we seeing some lawsuits against the unvaccinated if they make somebody sick? I know it's sometimes hard to trace it. Right. Sometimes you can.
Oh, they're saying in Texas you can't trace. You can't do tracing in Texas. I did read that. That's insane. All right, I just thought of one more. I had my pet booster. The WHO said that we should not be giving out boosters until everybody gets their first shot. Everybody can't have extra dessert until everybody eats their dinner.
Well, it's not going to happen. If it turns out that our vaccines start to wane or get less strong, less protective, either for a group, the elderly, or for all of us over time, you can bet they're going to do boosters. Nationalism prevails in all countries that I've ever looked at. They take care of their own citizens first. It sounds good, by the way, for the WHO to say nobody gets anything till we vaccinate the world. Vaccinating the world at this point in time, probably 4 years. I mean, it's not going to be like, oh, well, we have a boat and we'll just send it out to every nation on earth. Here's a question for the WHO. India has 1 billion people. Indonesia has about 500 million people. Nigeria, 250 million people. Who goes first? I'm not saying I don't care about those countries, but you can't just put it as us versus the rest of the world. They have to make some priorities up too, because it's going to take a long time to do the world.
My buddy was getting his life insurance policy, made me think of it, and he's like a pot smoker, but he's in really good shape. So everything came out and his weight and everything, and he was getting a high rating. And then when they got his urine back, they told him that it matched the urine of a German Shepherd, and he just shrugged his shoulders and went off to get another policy. Just my friend.
Wolf Blitzer? Wolf?
Yeah, sure. Wolf Blitzer. I always wonder that. I always wonder how often people lie on their life insurance policy.
That's funny.
All right, sir. Great to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Full of a lot of ranting today, but I think appropriate.
I love it. Keep it up. Keep writing. Keep ranting. Keep going, because you are the light that leads, sir. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.